everybody. Welcome back to Cast 11 and Retirement Done Right. With me today, I have Neal Sneller, and he is the knower of all resident services. Yes?
Yes. Well, I know a lot. I don't know about all. That's a lot to live up to, but I will try my best. So thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming in. Reason why I want to talk to you today is just, it's winter. Sidewalks, I was walking up today and just about slipped and fell.
It's getting cold. That wind is chilly.
It is cold. It is, but it got me to thinking about, just kind of the dangers that are lying await for us in the winter. And then I started thinking about grandmas and grandpas. And, way back in the day, I've seen, with my grandparents, it was, one fall. And that could be that's it. Right. And so and then I started thinking, what are some things I need to be looking out for?
Well, kudos to you for taking an interest in your grandparents' lives. And so many family members do travel back to visit their loved ones during this time of year. So it is a very busy time for senior living providers in general. And I think a lot of the times when people are talking to loved ones over the phone, grandma or grandpa or mom or dad, they can kind of cover up a lot of what's been going on.
Oh, so they try to hide it.
They try to hide it. And I think it's coming from a place of they don't want their family to worry. I mean, no one wants their family to worry about them. And mom or dad, they've been completely sufficient their whole life. And maybe they're at the point where things are starting to slip a little bit. And you'd mentioned the winter conditions, and definitely fall risks are a really big thing that happen this time of year with all the wintry conditions that we do have.
Yeah, I was thinking too, my grandpa was super proud. And so to ever admit, now he might tell you that, grandma is going to need some help, but he would never want to say that he needed help. Do you kind of see that too? Or
we do. Usually if there's a couple, one person is more of the decision maker or more of the driver in that move process. And a lot of people know that they want to age differently than their parents or grandparents, but they don't know how.
Right.
And the process has gotten so much easier and more convenient for seniors as they look at senior housing providers, Touchmark included, but industry has shifted much more resort style. And so it's much more of a resort versus a convalescent home.
Yeah.
And so for some people, when they think of senior housing, that's what they think of. They don't necessarily think of the vitality that a resort style life can provide them. And then just the peace of mind that it can give them and their family members. People tend to focus on what they're losing. Right. And that's the only thing that they can focus on versus looking at all the list of things that they potentially might gain in making a move. So it's a tough thing. At Touchmark, we do have retirement counselors. So we don't call them salespeople. They have specific training on helping counsel people through that process.
So that's got to be difficult.
It is. And it's a lot for the family. No one has ever turned 85 until you turn 85.
Right.
And you might have helped a loved one, but a lot of things have changed in the industry. And so you really need an advocate, someone who can come alongside you and say, hey, let's sit down together and make a plan. And a lot of times that can be very, very helpful to the family and also the person that potentially might make a change because they need help.
Right. So let's think about it as far as summer, we're all busy. We might have seen grandma and grandpa at maybe Mother's Day, something like that. And then the kids are back to school. If for some of us, it could really be a solid 6 months since we've seen grandma and grandpa or mom and dad. What are some warning signs that we should be checking for when we go and see them at Thanksgiving or Christmas?
That's a great question because so many times we get excited about the holiday and we don't kind of look at the broader scope of what's going on for them. I think the biggest thing is just the general condition, whether the home looks clean, whether you look in the refrigerator or the freezer and you see a lot of frozen meals. Maybe your loved one has gained weight or lost weight, or you're seeing something different. And then, of course, if there's any sort of known obstacles like stairs, you know that every year that's just going to get harder and harder. And then the risk of potentially tripping or falling can go up. A lot of people will use rugs, and those can be a common trip hazard.
Oh, that's right.
Any sort of change in the plane of the floor, all of a sudden they're shuffling their feet and they catch a rug. And so those are kind of some general things. And a lot of times people want to put their best foot forward when family comes. So maybe they've actually cleaned extra.
Uh-oh.
And so if you're like, wait, I think it's follow your intuition. If something, you've known your parents for a long time, and if something doesn't feel right, it might be time just to have an honest conversation with your loved one and just share what you're feeling or observing. And then don't be surprised if they push back.
I would imagine. And so if I see something and it's time to have that conversation, would it be smart for me maybe to reach out to someone like Touchmark or, assisted living, or, just for some guidance on how to bridge that gap or have
for
that
sure.
discussion?
I mean, for us, we do this every day. It's our profession, and it's a career that we all take pride in doing. And so we're able to help kind of navigate and coach families on common obstacles. It can be a dynamic where the roles reverse, where now mom or dad may take on more of a childlike role or a teenage-like role and kind of dig their feet in and say, I'm not going to move.
That's it.
Right. And for you now, you're taking on that adult role. And so there's some classic dynamics that happen, and it's really helpful to have a third party. Because if you tell your mom what to do, she's just going to get more and more stubborn. But if you can bring in a third party to kind of help navigate those complex situations, it can, I think the ultimate goal is to get the care on the living situation where people can feel safe, where they can really thrive. And if you're not seeing people thriving in their home, then it's really time to rally back up and try to look for what's a better alternative.
And I thought about too, they have friends, they're doing stuff, but I bet you there's some red flags there too.
If you look at people's friend circle or socialization, and typically as folks age, their world does get smaller. And it's a natural part of, well, now it's really crazy to drive, and I don't like driving on Mondays, and I only go to the grocery store on Wednesdays on the double coupon day. And And so people will make up all these different rules on how they engage with the world. And that can make your world small to the point where they're just not having fun anymore. And then it can take so much energy just to do the basic things. If someone's needing help, maybe getting their shoes or socks on, and it takes them an hour to do that every morning. I mean, how nice would it be just to have a caregiver who's trained and certified come and put your socks and shoes on in 5 minutes, so that you can have the energy and go about your day. But for folks that kind of stay in their home too long or don't receive the healthcare they need, it can start to work against them. And then there's almost a tipping point where if there's not an intervention, they could have a bigger health crisis, and things can kind of get worse.
So you show up, you see some of these warning signs. But you're noticing that for me, it was my grandpa. He was the one that, started kind of losing, dementia was kind of setting in. And it was actually more painful to watch what my grandma had to go through, because she had to be the one she was a caregiver now, and she was in her late 70s as a caregiver. And of course it was, nope, I'm good. I've got it. I've taken care of him for 50 years. I can do it for another 50. What are some things that I'm now looking for in grandma that, she seems to be doing okay, but there's got to come a point, right?
There is. And what you've described, unfortunately, is very common, where people don't age on the same track. Typically, one person will have greater health needs, and then that other person will kind of fill in that gap as a caregiver. And oftentimes that caregiver, their health will diminish more rapidly than the person they're caring for, simply because on top of all the other duties that they're maintaining a home, cooking, cleaning, going out to the grocery store, well, now you add on, well, now I have to help them bathe. I have to help remind them to take their medications. This whole other set of things that these people take on, and it's very taxing. And people make a commitment when they get married for sickness or health. And I think sometimes people are afraid to ask for help. I think there might be some pride, like you mentioned, like, oh, I got this, I can do this. And it's okay to ask for help. And I think it's a lot has changed as far as the stigma and moving to senior living. And then having a very luxurious place like Touchmark, where you have all the meals taken care of, all the housekeeping, utility bills are paid. Well, now that husband and wife, they can enjoy each other's company for the time that they do have left versus struggling in a home or being worried about if someone's going to wander out. And so it's really about, I think, working with families to find out what stage of life they're in and knowing that there are different options, whether it's independent living, assisted living, or memory care. A lot of times people tend to just lump senior living into end of life and not necessarily realizing that there's a whole continuum of care, including independent living, that is offered nowadays.
So if grandma's good to go, she's still thriving, she loves social interaction, but grandpa just needs help. You've got a place that they could both go to and be together. And
yes, yeah, we have a number of options. Okay. So the nice thing about Touchmark is we have options that really fit every family's needs. So if grandma wanted to maybe just move in grandpa on his own so she can continue to maintain her independence and come visit him every day, there's a lot of people that do that. And then there's some people that move in together. It really just depends on the situation for each family. But there's way more options nowadays than there really ever has been, and way more education too, whether it be about dementia and dementia-related activities, how you design a building. There's a lot of factors. These things have been around for decades. And while there's no cure for dementia, there's proven practices and methods that help. And having an environment where you have trained caregivers that know how to work with people with dementia can really go a long way.
Now, I've been to Touchmark a couple times. I wanted to just mention back when I was 8 years old. So it was like, I want to say the year 2000, but it was 1980. And
That's okay. No one knows.
No one. I went to visit my great grandma. And, I was just tagging along, obviously, with my mom and my grandma. And at 8 years old, and I still remember the sounds and the smells and the very sterile environment, and everything was metal. And I was so relieved when I went into Touchmark, and, I thought I was in the wrong spot because I'm like, this must be like the independent living. And you're like, no, this is memory care. So that was just shocking to me how far things have come in, I want to say 20 years, but more like 40 years. But
well, and that's evolved as people's preferences have changed and people require more amenities, and the industry has responded to that. And Touchmark's been a leader here in Northern Arizona as far as providing a brand new memory care place. And it's spectacular. I mean, like you were saying, there's a lot of bright windows. It feels brand new because it is. Each neighborhood, we have 4 different neighborhoods. And so folks can be placed in a care environment that's appropriate to them. That's really important to be around folks that are in this similar care level. And then having a quality trained staff. So we use the best friends approach, which was developed by David Troxel. And that's this idea that while there's no pill to cure dementia, there are methods that you can partner with people and come alongside them. For instance, even just saying, hey, Elisha, I'm going to be your best friend. And today, what would you like to do? And if you have no memory or no cognition, but if someone approaches you every day and says, hey, remember me? I'm your best friend. And today we're going to go eat breakfast together. Let's go. You're going to feel pretty good.
I'm needing this at my house.
Right.
Somebody just want to have lunch with me. But, because I've always struggled with I love that you have so many different levels. So you can come in even independent, and you just want somebody that's going to clean your house once a week. And I'm going to go live. I'm going to go out to Prescott and I'm going to explore, and we're going to take our trips and not worry if I left the stove on. And
a majority of our business focuses on independent living because there's so much need in this area. And a lot of times a home can start to work against people, especially as they age and their needs change. If you have stairs, if you have a steep driveway, if there's all these different obstacles that at one point were no big thing, but once you start getting up there, it can really be a hindrance to, and can also cause injury.
Bathtub.
Yeah, a bathtub.
Stepping up over the bathtub.
Yes. And then a lot of folks are alone. And so having a community where if something does happen, there's a pull cord, there's a group of people that are checking on you, and having that community is really, really key.
And I worried about that when Grandma was taking care of Grandpa, and it was, we'll just have a nurse come and check on them. And I learned very quickly that they needed more than somebody coming to check once a day or helping with a bath, once or twice a week. They missed that social, and that was so important to them.
Yes, that's huge. Honestly, that's the number one factor. There's a lot of research out there, and socialization is the number one thing to help keep your brain stimulated. And as folks' worlds get smaller, they don't have the same social network, and maybe they only go to church once a month. They used to go every week. All these things. Well, now the number of people that someone is interacting with is, you can count on two hands, 10 or less people a week. And when you live in a community setting, you walk down the hall, you're going to see other residents, you're going to see other team members. And just that simple hi can go a long way in feeling a part of something greater, and having some socialization where you're around other people that are at the similar stage in your life, where maybe retired and similar age, similar background. That's really important. And so community living is, some people have never lived in an apartment style where there's neighbors, but there's a lot of benefits in just having built-in socialization, having a community to check up on you. And then if something happens, we see it where if a loved one passes away, well, now you have that community to rally behind you, and you're not just isolated in this big home. And if someone passed away and they did all the bill pay, and now you're having to grieve a loss of a spouse and figure out, how do I pay the utility bill? And I only can do it online. And there's all these obstacles that can come up when people live at home and they don't have help. And even if they have children in the area, well, they're working, they're busy with their own lives. And it's really, really important just to, I think, for people to know that there's options out there, and it's changed a lot over the last 15, 20 years.
Well, and I like how you mentioned, their loved ones. Well, I'm a good granddaughter. I'm going to take care of Grandma and Grandpa, but we have children, we're working, and the guilt that must be associated with trying to be a caregiver. And, unless you're moving in, how do you juggle all of that in your
You can't. You really can't. And then that role of being a spouse, or rather, I guess, a granddaughter, is you're no longer a granddaughter, you're a caregiver. And wouldn't it be nice to visit Grandma and just reminisce and go to lunch and talk, versus being like, oh, I have this to-do list of all the things that I need to do. And by the time you get to the end of it, you're exhausted and you're just ready to go home. And so allowing those professionals to provide support for loved ones is key. And it really preserves those relationships.
I like that you mentioned that, because for me, the guilt of not being the caregiver was, a lot. Like, I have 5 children and I'm married, and, we live, 3.5 hours away at the time. And so it was just so guilt-ridden that you couldn't be that person. And, Grandma always saying, don't put me in a home, don't put me in a home, because she remembers where her mom was. And so it is relieved to me, because we did end up, they went to a retirement community, and it was the change in them. And this was in Central California, but they had stuff to look forward to. They knew they played cards at 4:00 on Tuesdays, and Friday night they were going to go sit out by the fire pit and just, relax and have fun with everybody and have a glass of wine. And they excelled when they went into the retirement community. And it was great because, Grandpa was able to get the help that he needed. Somebody else came in to set up his medication and to give him his meds, and Grandma just got to be his wife, and, they got to go and do stuff within the community. So,
well, and it sounds like they had fun.
They did.
And we hear over and over from seniors that when they all get together, the only thing they share is about their doctor appointments. And what did you do this week? Oh, I had 6 doctor appointments.
This hurts and that hurts. And,
right. And so for us, we have a life enrichment director, and we have a number of life enrichment team members that create those events and activities over the 7 dimensions of wellness. And so we try to be sure that we cover those. I'm going to try to list them here. I'm going to probably
let's see. I'll check them off.
Right. So we have spiritual type of events. So that's self-explanatory, Sunday church services that we provide. Occupational, we have different speakers from the financial industry or different things that will come in and help kind of keep people engaged on what's going on in the market. Those are always generally good things for folks to learn about. Let's see, then there's physical. So we have a health and fitness center where folks can utilize a lot of physical activity, whether it be in our swimming pool or relaxing in a hot tub after a yoga class.
I'm moving in. Let's go.
And I'm not even going to try. I thought I was going to remember all 7, but
we can list them. We'll
come back to it. We can throw it on the green screen, right? But the idea is that it's a holistic approach and that you still can have fun even though that you're elderly, and it's getting that care and that support that you need at the right time of life, and so that all your energy doesn't go just to surviving, but you can really thrive and extend your life and really have fun doing it.
And what better place to do it than in Prescott?
Yes. I mean, so many folks love Arizona, and they love Northern Arizona for the 4 seasons, our incredible views, just a great community. And there's a lot of great options down in Phoenix, but it's a giant city, and it's just so easy to get lost in the city life there. We're still a small town up here. And so we attract a lot of folks from all over the state and even Southern California because Prescott is such a desirable location.
Yeah. Well, and what's great is, you always think of, if this goes wrong, I'm going to have to head to Phoenix to get it taken care of. And we have, in my opinion, the premier place right here in Prescott that, people that have lived their lives here, you don't have to go anywhere else. You can stay right in your home, and it's your home of Prescott, and you're here with your, still your friends. And I think it's, for me, I live up at Touchmark, there's no stigma with that. That is awesome. It's like, you live at you get to go to the Finn, like you're up there. And so it's just so pretty up there. And you guys have taken so many steps to make it their home. And it's just second to none, in my opinion. So.
Well, thank you. And I think the advice that I would give family members that are going home during this holiday season is, if you are going to have a conversation with a loved one, to do it in private, to maybe pull mom or dad aside. You're going to probably go a little bit further versus if it's at the Thanksgiving dinner table and you're like, and then to just don't necessarily make it about making a move, but just exploring and come take a look type thing. I think the more broad you can use language, then it doesn't feel like you're just trying to take someone out of an environment where they think they might be comfortable. And then people get used to their home and obviously have a lot of pride in that. And know that it does take a minute for people to realize that there's a better option. And I think when they can come on campus at Touchmark and take a look, the lifestyle really does sell itself. With our 3 restaurants, our health and fitness center, our brand new facilities. I mean, you or me would be happy to live in any one of those homes.
Any day, anytime.
and it shatters what people think of, because what they think of is from the 1950s. And we're just the opposite, very modern and fresh, and it feels like home.
I bet you there are a lot of seniors that they're used to a certain lifestyle. They've worked hard their entire lives. They've saved. And it might just be the resort style of, I'm done. I'm ready to just do this. And they move in, they do that. And I love that they can age in place, basically. So they've made the decision to do that.
And it's always great when you can make that decision proactively. And so you're not making a decision during a health crisis. If someone falls, they're in the hospital, they get discharged, and the discharge planner is saying, hey, you need to make a move. That's a terrible time to make a move, because it's you have all these other things going on. And if you're moving in under those circumstances, it's hard to get out and meet new friends and really integrate yourself in the community. Of course, if everyone had a crystal ball, you'd look at it and you say, okay, I'm going to move 2 months before that date.
Happens, yeah. So let's say that I go visit grandma and grandpa and the whole family's sitting around and we know there's a problem and we need to move quicker rather than later. How quickly could we get, whether it's Touchmark or, another place that's near grandma and grandpa, how quickly could we get that to happen? Is it a long process, or how does that work?
It's not a long process. We meet people where they are. And so if they have a situation where they need to make a move quickly, we can totally help. In a matter of less than a week, we have a team of professionals that we can rally and really help get someone the support that they need, whether it's a downsizer or a realtor. We have a whole team of professional people that can help kind of expedite things and move them up, and then come up with a short-term plan and maybe a long-term plan as well. Depending on, okay, we just need to get mom out of the house into a safe environment, and then the kids are going to come back in a couple months, go through stuff. So every situation's a little bit different. I mean, we've seen it all. And like I said, we have retirement counselors who their job is to really help counsel families and to go through that process, come alongside and be an expert.
That's a good point, because you think, with brothers and sisters, one of them always thinks they know what's best, and then you get that in between, and come in with a team, come in with help.
It takes a village, right? And it's something where the dynamic of a mother-daughter, if you always had a dynamic, it's going to always be there. And just to have that third party that's neutral, that can kind of speak to that person with their own experience is very powerful. And there's no reason to do it alone. I mean, there's people here that can help.
Okay, so we know stairs. We got to watch out for those.
Yes.
Those are early warning signs, right? We come in, we're checking refrigerators. We're seeing, mom used to always keep everything well stocked. And now it's not. Appearance, I would assume.
Yes. Yeah. Just general hygiene. And anything that's just different. I mean, you're like, oh, mom always really liked putting out a nativity set, and this year she didn't. And you ask her why. Oh, I just didn't have the energy. Or, and maybe even going and talking to the neighbors too,
That's a good idea.
And that's probably a good idea anyway. Hey, making sure you have their contact if something were ever to happen. And I think maybe asking mom or dad privately and, how are things going? And you can speak from a place of compassion. I think people often feel like they're going to be judged. And so then their defenses go up. But if you can come from a place of, hey, I feel concerned because I live across town and I'm not able to come over here, and you're all alone in this big house. And ever since dad passed away, you're alone. And are you getting your needs met? And a lot of times folks will give you a surface answer, but if you can just continue to kind of maybe pry a little bit more, they may tell you, I do feel alone, or I'm not as happy as I once was. I'm more depressed than I ever have been. And a lot of times, the socialization is something that people often overlook because they had such busy lives and they look forward to retirement where they have a smaller responsibility. And then they get to a point in their life where, again, their world gets smaller and smaller, and they don't even realize it because it happens in small increments.
Right.
But then you as a family member can come in and be like, oh, you used to love that group of ladies that played cards. And those are always a warning sign too, if there's some sort of social activity that they engaged in, but you find out maybe, oh, they're uncomfortable driving. There's usually something that is that caused that change, because people don't typically give up things that they like unless there's something that happened.
So, okay, so we've figured out what we're going to do. We figured out the warning signs. We figured out we're going to give you guys a call, or anybody. I mean, it's just Touchmark is great here, but there's lots of places that can help. And but just what I've learned is make sure you've got support. Make sure you've got a plan. If you're going to talk to a family member, do it in private. Maybe not stand up on the Thanksgiving table and,
right.
We're concerned. This is what we want to do.
Right. Yes.
And talk it out. And it's not, this is what you're going to do.
It's a discussion. And I think it's easy. I mean, I've done this with my own father too, where if you see a need, it's very easy to be like, I have the solution. But when we do that, it naturally brings up people's defenses. That's just human nature. So to maybe have a curious mind and to maybe play dumb in a way of like, how are things going? Or I noticed you used to really like mowing the yard and it's not mowed anymore. And do you not like doing that anymore? Oh, well, ever since I had a fall, it's hard for me to walk. Or a lot of times there's injuries that even happen and people they don't want their family to worry. And so they just won't report these things. And And to meet that with, hey, we're going to get you the help that you need. It's okay. Everyone needs help. And to know that you're there for them, not to tell them what to do, but to come alongside and really partner with them.
Yeah. And I would think holidays bring on that depression anyway. It's
a tough time because for many of us, we celebrate, but as you get older, when your friends or loved ones pass away, you may have memories of, I used to love celebrating or having this tradition with my spouse. And if they're no longer around and you're doing it all alone, that's very different.
Well, I think the holidays is a perfect time to catch up, see what's really going on. And this is probably, I would think, mentally a good time to start having these conversations, because it is a tough time for a lot of people, and maybe they'll be more open to the thought of making a change. And
it's a process, and every family has kind of a different dynamic or different decision-making process. And just to look at the situation holistically and know that people, they make decisions because sometimes of pride or just habit. And it takes a while to break a habit sometimes, or if you've always driven home a certain way and you try to drive home a different way, your mind kind of goes like, I'm lost.
Where are we going?
And so just to be compassionate when you're talking with folks and rally back up. Like I said, we have a great team, and our team of retirement counselors, this is what they do every day. And we can really help come alongside and be a resource for you and your family.
Perfect. Do you have a contact information or something people can reach out to?
I do. So our best way, if you want to learn more about senior living and Touchmark at the Ranch, you can visit our website, which is touchmarkprescott.com, or call us at 928-632-7800.
All right. And we will pop that number on the video for everybody so that you've got it right in front of you. Worst case scenario, give them a call to ask for Neal. He'll get you there. Just let somebody know, what you're looking for. And it's so great that there's resources for people.
Yes. And I think that's the biggest thing that's changed over all these years is as a society, we've grown in our approach and our professionalism, and we treat everyone with dignity.
Perfect. Well, I'd love for you to come back on and talk about there's so many special things that you guys do up there. And
that would be exciting. My pleasure.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming in, Neal. And everyone, thank you for joining us at Cast 11 Studios. And this was Retirement Done Right.